political campaign. Well, in a lot of countries, you can't do that anymore because the state now controls the media. The state censors the internet. Brazil just banned Twitter because Elon Musk refused to censor user speech. Kamala Harris says that Musk better behave himself or he will, quote, lose his
privileges and it should be taken down. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
She thinks, and the Democratic establishment thinks, that free speech is a privilege. Well, you know and I know that it's a right. And if Kamala Harris is elected, the powers behind her will quash that right. They're already halfway there. It will be too late by 2028.
Hello, it's James Johnson, aka Sulphur Blade. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to my content, and welcome back to Suzerain. Okay, we're ready for the next turn, it looks like. The big three unite against Governor Braun is the highlights in the whole sword post. President Rain meddles in the judiciary. In a stunning move, the USP, PFJ, and NFP have called for Governor Braun's removal from office following the Victory Day celebration. USP, NFP, and BFJP display their commitment to soloism. Alright, moving on to the next turn. Chapter 3, Victims of Change. I think that's what it said. Heartbreak for FC Enrica as FC Gelsword secures back-to-back league titles. World ignores the bloodish plight. And Belgish man shot after burning Agnolian flag. EFF recruitment. It is reported that in the villages around Suzerain, a group of BFF missionaries are seeking to recruit militants to fight for the BFF. Governor Braun reported that the Gendarmerie forces in the area are now actively working towards eliminating the threat. Anything else happening? A call from Marcel Carante, Office of the President of Swordman, Maroon Palace. Mr. Carante, whatever is the pleasure. So I was in my office looking through the agenda for the upcoming meeting at the Ministry of Economy. The meeting was going to be about the ownership of the Big Four, the four largest companies in Swordland: Heart of Swordland, Bergia Steel, and the Swordish State Corporation, and Needham Mining Group. Some of these companies were controlled in part or entirely by the state. The others were mostly or completely privatized. I had the power to change that. The phone rang, and I put the agenda down. Pick up the phone. Greetings, Mr. President. It's been a while, hasn't it? Let me try to remember. When was the last time we had a chat? Oh, I remember. It was in Conriat when you refused my gracious offer. For a good reason. Well, we are both adults here. I'm sure we can let past be past and focus on the future. Although this time I'm talking about the short-term future. Your upcoming ownership meeting, for example. But before we move on to that, I wanted to thank you for choosing Underhall Construction to complete the H3 highway. The mayor of Conriat, Crit Shar, is a close friend and an investor in Underhall, and your contracting of the firm has tripled his returns. The decision wasn't necessarily made to benefit you, Marcel. Perhaps not, but it certainly worked out for me. Moving on. I know it's been a while, but I have to give credit where it's due, or overdue in this case. Your business bailout greatly benefited certain subsidiaries of HOS that were reporting record losses. We managed to avoid closing those companies, and they satisfied the board of HOS with a high profit report in return. Ensuring employment was our primary target, of course. He paused for a few seconds. Out of goodwill, I will share a key piece of information. The Lothbrok Group has contingency plans if you decide to do anything rash that would disrupt their empire. You can't blame them, can you? Imagine someone trying to take your authority and personal wealth away without your consent. I have to deal with whatever I decide. It is a tough world. Please don't take what I'm about to say as a threat. If you are not careful about what happens next, it might cost you dearly. Nobody wants that. If everybody plays their cards right, it will be all fine. Now, let's talk about those cards. Since the start of your campaign, you wisely committed to a market economy. Judging by that, I'm sure you're looking into privatizing some of the companies that are currently state-owned. I believe, therefore, that privatizing both Needham Mining Group and the Swordish State Corporation would be in both of our interests. After all, I'm considering buying stocks in both companies. Privatizing both might be too much. I will see what I can do. Think about it this way. It is another step forward in strengthening our economy. Please, at least think about it. He cleared his throat. I will be blunt. Mr. Tusk is unfit to be the spokesperson for the Lothbrok Group. His archaic thinking has only preserved a status quo that benefits himself and precious few others. It's high time something changed. Stop before you say anything more. I won't meddle in oligarchs' affairs. It was worth a shot, but I respect your decision. Very well, I won't push it further. I've taken up enough of your time today. This has been a productive call. Thank you for your time, Mr. President. Goodbye, Mr. Cronty. After a couple of minutes, I went back to reviewing the agenda. You know, I've never done a playthrough where I played as the bad guy. Well, not really a bad guy, but the guy who goes about profiting off of his decisions. You know, the Joe Biden way. Maybe I'll try a Joe Biden playthrough one of these days. Okay, read the report. Massive rally condemning President Rain. A massive crowd have gathered in Suzerain to condemn President Rain for his recent statements defending the socialist interpretation of citizen rights. The people are calling for actual changes to be made to their constitution that recognizes the British people and their culture. They believe that the president's defense of the constitution is a clear indication that the government has no intention of introducing significant reforms. Border police have reported an increased number of arrests as Bloodish and Vezik refugees attempt to enter the country from Velen. Temporary detention centers have been erected in Suzerain to process the deportation of the illegal immigrants. Public opinion in cities like Lokoven, known for their significant middle-class liberal population, is undergoing a noticeable shift with surge in support for bloodish rights. The case of Ishval arson struck a chord with many individuals, leading to a growing sense of empathy and solidarity. The recent statement from officials of the WPB urging the government to incorporate changes to Articles 6 and 7 have resonated strong with the Sordish population, and these cities' call for reform to recognize and protect bloodish rights are gaining traction, and there is a palpable sentiment among residents that the time has come for meaningful change. Supreme Court holds Governor Braun accountable. In a groundbreaking ruling, the Supreme Court has charged Governor Braun for his implementation of divisive resettlement order in the special zone of Bergia, targeting individuals referred to as swords of different blood. The court's decision reinforces the principle that equality and justice must prevail even at the highest levels of power. Governor Braun's removal from office and the accompanying fine demonstrated the court's commitment to uphold the rule of law and safeguarding the rights of all citizens. In a testament to the constitutional process, the court has appointed Herbert Kroll, a seasoned member of the NFP, as acting governor until the end of the term. While the court ruled in favor of Ishval Urson's argument regarding discrimination, it rightfully recognized that the Constitution already guarantees equal rights for all. Bloodish community in Suzerain expressed outrage and demand meaningful reform. The recent ruling by the Supreme Court has sparked outrage among the Bloodish community residing in the city of Suzerain. While initial celebration over Governor Braun's dismissal were witnessed on the streets, the underlying sentiment remains one of skepticism and frustration towards the government's limited efforts in acknowledging and rectifying the systematic discrimination faced by the Bloodish population. What began as celebratory gatherings soon transformed into peaceful protests against the new governor, Herbert Kroll, with demonstrators demanding comprehensive reform and reparations for past injustices. Central to the protest is the demand for the resignation of Chief Justice Hawker, as Bloodish community perceives a lack of empathy and understanding from the highest levels of the judiciary. Bloodish Democrats condemn President Rain. Of course they do. Yesterday, a massive crowd has descended upon the streets of Suzerain. Okay, Supreme Court decision falls short of justice again. In a controversial ruling, the Supreme Court has as always failed to deliver true justice in the case against Governor Braun's discriminatory policies. While the court acknowledged some aspects of Ishval Urson's argument regarding discrimination, this minor concession is hardly victory for Bloodish rights or catalyst for meaningful change. Refugees suffer because of rain as more and more Bloods and Vizics attempt to flee Valen. We are seeing the consequences of Anton Rain's inhumane border policy. Turned away from Swordland, families face homelessness, starvation, and persecution from Victor Smolak's regime. Demonstrations against President Rain. Ignored, neglected, and abandoned by our government. President Rain, we hope that it is not so much of a surprise to President Rain and his administration that people have finally stood up and protested for their rights as citizens of Swordland. As of right now, thousands of Swordish men and women are pouring onto the streets across the country to ask for their rights and for the president to finally put the people that voted for him above everything else. Arcasian-Quinali relations, a fresh chapter. Okay. So, Kabaro Keebner's argument that Bloods are swords underneath the Constitution, that they're all citizens, that resonates with me. I think all swords, which is every citizen of the country, regardless of their nationality, should be treated equally and have equal rights under the law. I don't think we need to be like, oh, well, the Bloodish population needs some sort of special protection. No, they need the exact same protection that everyone else in the country gets. Requested meeting of Lucien Galad. Read the report. Supreme Court finds Governor Braun guilty. Okay. Today, the Supreme Court has charged Governor Braun for enacting the resettlement order, which discriminated against swords of different blood for living in the special zone of Bergia. The court ruled in favor of Ishval Ursen's argument, and Governor Braun was fined and removed from office. However, the court did not agree with the other arguments put forward by Ursen and maintained that the Constitution already provided equal rights to everyone. As for the placement for the governor, the Supreme Court ruled that the extraordinary circumstances such as this, the deputy of the governor shall assume duty until the end of the term. Instead of president appointing a new governor, the deputy who will assume the office is Herbert Krall, an old member of the NFP. The court's decision has garnered mixed reactions. Lucien scheduled some time with me to discuss the potential political repercussions of the upcoming economy meeting. He arrived on time as usual and took his seat right across from me. Good morning, Mr. President. Lucien had dark circles below his eyes. The plethora of political developments must have been weighing even on a workaholic like him. You look a bit tired. Are you getting enough sleep? I'm trying to, sir. Very well. I booked some of your time to pre-plan for today's meeting at the Ministry of Economy. But before you go into the economic direction, I want to give you a short status update. After you and Mr. Kiebner made your statement in the support of Solo's constitutionalism, the Supreme Court prioritized the case and quickly announced a verdict. It was very clever of you to use Solism against them. They couldn't afford to look like hypocrites, so they must have moved on it very quickly. The court ruled that Felix Braun is to be relieved from his position as governor for abusing his power to discriminate against Swedish citizens. He's banned from serving in any political position in the future and will be charged with a fine of 5 million Swedish ren. The resettlement policies of Bergia are ruled to be unconstitutional and have been revoked. However, the court has also rejected Ursen's arguments about the Constitution, ruling that all citizens of Swordland are swords, regardless of ethnicity, and are completely equal before the law. The results received a mixed response from the British community. Activists, radicals, and BFF sympathizers have condemned the ruling. However, the majority seem to recognize that justice has been served. Soulless or not, this is good news. Bergia will finally be free of Governor Braun's racist rule. I agree, sir. There is one more important detail. The seat of governor of Bergia must be filled. Normally, the president appoints the governor of the special zone directly. I'm afraid, despite Miss Morgana's protest, the court decided to take a completely different route on this. Mr. Hawker argued that a premature departure of a governor during their term is an exceptional case. They ruled that the deputy of Governor Braun will assume his duty until the end of the term. Mr. Kiebner might have played you. Unfortunately, the deputy in question, Mr. Krall, is a member of the NFP. I'm afraid the court delivered Bergia straight into the NFP's hands. This is very bad news. What do we do now? Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it, sir. Luckily, Mr. Krall will not be able to resume any of his predecessor's unconstitutional activities. Of course, giving such a powerful position to a far-right nationalist is still very concerning. Luckily, Miss Graff is already working on the revocation of the special zone in Bergia. We may still be able to get rid of Mr. Krall that way. It would likely It would likely be ready after the vote for the amendments. You'd be free to enact it then. Great news. Tell her I'm grateful for her work on this. Of course, sir. He took a look at his watch. For now, let's return back to the real reason we are here, our economic direction. We need to be cautious. Any grand plans about the economy also heavily influences our political standing. We would be changing our relationship with the old guard and the oligarchs and the opposition. As you know, this meeting will give you the opportunity to alter the ownership of the Big Four, the largest corporations in all of Swordland. We can start the process of nationalization or privatization, or we can just keep the status quo. Again, I remind you that any change will tip an already fragile balance. I personally think we should stay out of this and keep things as they are. There is no need to make new political enemies at this stage in our term. But ultimately, the decision is yours. What are you leaning towards? How should we move forward? We will privatize these companies. Privatization path. I have to ask why. What is your intention? Privatization will help bring the country out of the recession. That may be true, but taking everything out of state hands may have dire repercussions in a country like ours. We need to think about this carefully. One thing to remember is that since you've been transparent about promoting a market economy, privatization will not cost as much support. Lucian took a note in his notebook. I received a report from the Ministry of Economy that may impact your decision. Unfortunately, we have missed our government budget targets for the current quarter. The plan to change the ownership of important assets could help us generate much needed resources to further improve economic development before the next election. It's just something to consider as our relationship with the oligarchs. We need to remember that they only care about their own profits. Thankfully, we're on good terms with them for now, which helps us with the economic recovery. If we implement a privatization plan, it will boost our relationship even further. Walter Tuss seems to be organizing several opposing conservative and nationalist assembly members to back us in the upcoming vote. If we maintain our standing with him, our reforms process will benefit. It's all a show. He and the others won't lift a finger without clear benefit. Besides, we don't need them in the future. Just be careful with him. Remember, any path we take here could very well determine what battles we fight in the future. Some of my connections indicate that there seems to be a contest for leadership in the Lothbrok group. It looks like Marcel Carante is making moves to become the key figure. Carante probably wants his father's seat as the head of the group, and Tusk doesn't want to let it go. It's a significant power struggle, considering these are the heads of Swordland's two largest private corporations. If we over-privatize our state and owned companies, the Swordish State Corporation and Nida Mining Group, it could result in the balance tipping to one side. They would fight over buying up shares and cause chaos. Since you have already made the decision to privatize, you need to be decisive in your follow-up actions. Did Marcel or Tusk contact you? I received a call from Marcel. What did he ask for? I stopped him before he could say anything. Not involving ourselves in the oligarch's business will save us from potential headaches. But when win the decisions we're about to make today, I doubt that we can stay neutral for long. At any rate, this internal conflict among the oligarchs puts us in an interesting position. Our relationship with Walter Tusk has been very strong so far, and we have the backing of the oligarchs thanks to that. Very well then, it's almost time. I will inform Mr. Hull of your decision, and he will make the necessary preparations to formulate a plan. I must get back to work now. See you at the next meeting. Thank you for your time, sir. Lucien got up from his chair and left the office. Vogsland Navy active in Markian Sea. The Hejland Island has been a disputed territory for many years between Agnolia and Vogsland. With Swordland standing on the sideline, Vogsland has increased its navy activity in the Markian Sea, are heightening a standoff between the two nations and sharpening their rivalry for each other. Mixed reactions and protests against Supreme Court decision. According to the reports, the Bloodish people living in the city of Ezrin are outraged by the recent Supreme Court ruling. Despite celebrations of Governor Braun's dismissal taking place on the streets for hours, many are expressing skepticism and frustration towards the government's inability to fully recognize and address the systematic discrimination they face. BFF threatens attack against President Rain and Kizaro Kivner. According to intelligence reports, several leaders of the Bloodish Freedom Front held a secret gathering in Rebel following the Supreme Court's decision to reject Ursen's arguments about the racism of the Constitution, reiterating their commitment to Solism. Herbert Krall assumes office. Yesterday, Herbert Krall has taken over as the new governor of the Special Zone of Bergia, following the charges and removal of former Governor Braun from his position. Krall, a seasoned politician from the NFP, who served as a deputy to Felix Braun, has promised to work towards ensuring that the Special Zone remains stable and peaceful. Marking a significant leap in surveillance capabilities, the CSP has successfully launched and operationalized its first 3 spy satellites. Okay, the news. Swordish-Arcasian joint drills at Ellery Air Force Base. Arcasia, having been granted access to Ellery Air Force Base, has been running joint military drills with Swordish planes. The exercise is indicative of the deepening trust between our country and Arcasia following the deal, during which Arcasia also promised Swordland financial, logistical, and equipment support. Increased support for Bloodish rights outside of Bergia. Many Swordish citizens around Swordland, particularly the city of Lagavin, is experiencing a remarkable shift in public opinion as waves of support for Bloodish rights sweep throughout the country. New Governor of Bergia, Herbert Krall. WPB condemns Supreme Court decision. Walker's capitalism versus Devereaux's reform. As Arcasia's election drama unfolded, Charles Devereaux of the Reformist Union Party emerged as a formidable challenger to President Dwight Walker. Devereaux presented a vision divergent from Walker's staunch Arcasian capitalism. He argued for a more balanced approach between the public and private sectors, suggesting that unchecked privatization and deregulation could breed systematic disparities. Tensions keep rising in the Markian Sea. According to reports from Magnolia, the Valgasian fleet, which has been patrolling the Margasian Sea, was directly responsible for the disappearance of 2 fishing vessels. Okay, Okay, WPB condemns Supreme Court. Yeah, we know about that. Ownership change of major corporations. Ministry of Economy. Whole sword. Lucy and I arrived at the Ministry of Economy. Assistants took our coats and showed us into the meeting room, where Simon, Edith, Gus, and Mikhail were waiting. As soon as I entered, their chatter stopped, and they stood up. After a few pleasantries, everyone but Simon took their seat. He opened his briefcase, produced a folder, and proceeded to go over some of the documents. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Ministry of Economy. Without further ado, we are, of course, here today to discuss our economic shift towards privatization. Mikhail and Edith exchanged smiles. Mr. President, before you arrived, Mikhail and Edith were expressing their delight at your decision to go down this path. Wonderful news, I'd say. I'm glad we're staying firmly on the path to a market economy. This was certainly the right decision. It will boost our economy by providing the government much needed funds right now. We can then use these funds to increase development for the future. It's a win-win situation for sure. Enough with the flattery. I have to give credit when it's due. Simon handed me and everyone else in the room 2 neat stacks of documents. Let's move on to how we can go about implementing a privatization plan. Please turn to page 6. I turned to page 6. The title was the Stordish Estate Corporation. As you can see on the document, the first company up for discussion is the Stordish State Corporation. The Stordish State Corporation, or SSC for short, has been around for over half a century. Most recently, they have been handling a wide range of state construction projects. In their portfolio, they have government buildings, various infrastructure projects, state libraries, embassies, basically anything government related. Privatizing a company like this would certainly increase the government's budget. That, of course, would result in a lot of opportunities for us to provide for our citizens. The funds could also be used to boost our popularity, especially with the election approaching. Not to mention the various other areas in which we can and should spend money. However, there is one catch. The conservative majority of the USP would not like this decision at all. For them, the state companies are part and parcel of the Stordish identity. If we privatize these companies entirely and sell too many shares in them, it will have consequences for us in the Assembly. What would be the effects if we fully privatized Stordish State Corporation? We would gain tremendous amounts of money for the government. We can invest the money in future government projects, which would popularize our administration, increasing the chance for our re-election. That popularity might not make up for losing the lion's share of the conservative vote. Conservatives compromise the majority of the Assembly. If we hurt their national pride, they'll turn on us. I am against full privatization. We shouldn't make enemies at this stage. What if we sell a minority share of SSC? It would be better than nothing, but why stop there? A minority stake won't help our government as much. We need to be decisive. On the other hand, a minority share would create less friction. This would be my preference. And what about selling a majority share? This is certainly a very good option. The state would keep some of SSC's operations under control, and the government would have lots of gains. I'm leaning towards this option myself. Retaining control while increasing our budget, I don't see a downside. Let's move on to the next option. Very well, please turn to page 26. It was titled Needham Mining Group. It's one of the largest mining corporations in eastern Macopa, let alone Swordland. They call themselves the leaders of the world in coal. They certainly have enough evidence to back that up. Perhaps they are not as large as SSC, but we still have a lot to gain if Needham Mining Group is privatized. I fully support privatization of this company to any extent. Certainly a good option to gain enough capital to end the recession once and for all. I have contacts in Needham. It is one of the most valuable corporations of the last decade. I can vouch for that. I have personal experience with the company myself. It would be a great addition to any portfolio. What would be the effects if we fully privatized Needham Mining Group? It would be a very profitable sell. I know many people who would kill to have a portion of that company. I do think this is a good option. We could simply fully privatize Needham along with the SSC to bring a large influx of money to the government. Mr. President, I hate to repeat myself, but fully privatizing one state-owned company, let alone two, will anchor our conservative voter base. All the budget in the world won't matter if you aren't reelected. Minority share? Coupled with a minority share of SSC, that is the way to go. It would, however, be a lost opportunity. I think we should sell a majority share instead. Definitely not a bad idea at all. What about a majority share? My preference is selling a majority share of both SSC and Needham. It would give us the most value. I think we should go with this choice. This might still generate a backlash from the Assembly and the general public. We should go for a minority share instead. Sounds good. Let's go over the document once again then. I read all of Simon's documents once more, then flipped to the last page. It was time to make some decisions. I'm tempted to hold on to the Swordfish State Corporation and get rid of the mining group. I think having this state-owned construction company that takes care of things the state needs done makes sense in my mind. However, at the same time, we haven't been picking them because they're not cost effective. They're so bloated in their cost that we're gonna go minority state-owned. And minority state-owned. That's what I'm gonna do. I signed the document altering the ownership of the Big Four. With a flourish, Simon leaned back in his chair. So, this is the path we are taking. I want to thank you, Mr. President. This decision will revitalize our economy. Although I wish we could have proceeded with privatization in greater capacity, it is a start. Certainly a step in the right direction. Partial privatization will still deal damage to our conservative voter base, but it is nothing we can't handle. I suspect that regardless, we will lose the support of some conservatives in the Assembly, but the gains we receive will offset the losses. Well, I hope you're right. I'll do the best I can. If you excuse me, I have to get to work immediately. There is much to be done. Lucian packed up his bags and started making his way to the entrance. That will be it for today then. I know everyone has very busy schedules. Thank you all for coming. Good work, everyone. Indeed. I put the documents in my suitcase and left the room with Lucian. We have money. I would be tempted to try to hang on to said money so that we could have a better government budget the next time. I'd like to see what being able to increase the budget on some things would do, and if that might not be a better use than investing in infrastructure projects. We'll see. Let's click on some of these things to make the little dots go away. Alright, I think we made all the little dots go away. Alright, should be Unified Education Language Act. The Grand National Assembly has advanced the Unified Education Language Act to strengthen national unity and facilitate consistent, comprehensive learning across Swordland. Section 1 stipulates that all educational institutions in Swordland are required to conduct their teaching in the country's official language, except in the case of foreign language instruction, to offer courses in any other language other than Swordish institutions must obtain explicit approval from the Ministry of Education. Any universities, technical college, or other educational institutes found to be non-compliant will face a temporary suspension of operation until they apply for and receive the necessary approval. Section 2 of the EULA underscores the enforcement of the Act. Schools found to be in violation of these guidelines may face penalties, which may include reduction or withdrawal of funding in several cases or cases of persistent non-compliance. Total shutdown may be enforced. This enforcement mechanism reinforces the commitment to a unified language policy, ensuring a cohesive educational experience across the nation. All right. On the face, I like this legislation. I think a country's language should be its primary business language, and for the purposes of education, obviously everyone should be taught in the language of the country. At the same time, there could be sections of this country that have a majority population that don't speak Sordish. They could also be poor on top of that, without access to which could impact their ability to receive a good education. You know, if the student doesn't understand the curriculum, how are they ever going to pass it? However, at the same time, if the student is starting in kindergarten with this in place, then obviously they're going to understand the language going forth because they're going to be taught the language going forth. It's the students who are currently in the middle, the students who are currently in high school, who have been using one language and now they have to shift over to another language they don't understand. It's the immediate 4 to 8 years of students that are beyond elementary school that could suffer with this. But in the long run, after those 4 to 8 years, that's no longer going to be an issue. Everyone will be able to understand their curriculum. Then there's the other side effect that minorities, like the Bloodish, could see this as more as a government oppressing them more by forcing them to go against their cultural language. However, they do live in this country. They should adopt to this country's tongue. I'm signing it. I think we have to go through the trials and tribulations that this is going to create, because in the long run it's eventually going to stabilize the country. Results of economic direction. The privatization process had begun, and I had expected Swordland's two most prominent oligarchs wanted to speak to me about it. Lucian showed Marcel Carante and Walter Tusk into the conference room. The two men sat across the table from me, leaving an empty chair in between them. Good to see you, Mr. President. It's been a while. Here, take this, a gift. He brought out a bottle of Erlery Maroon 30-year-old. I heard Peter say that you favor this one. No matter how you bribe me, you won't get what you are here for. Well, how do I know he's not going to get what he's here for? I just don't want to be bribed. What do you want in return? No, I don't want to give him the door to a bribe. Straight to business always. Thanks for the gift. Am I just going to accept the gift? Yeah, it's a gift, right? I'll take the gift. And if he then asks for some special treatment, I just won't give it to him. Thank you for the gift. Sorry, but you can't bribe me. Alright. Marcel bursts out laughing. Old man, you always think so small. You lack the vision to see bigger picture. Marcel approached me and we shook hands. It's nice to see you, Mr. President. Here, a real gift. He took a set of car keys from my pocket and gave them to me. Come, take a look. I looked out the window on the road leading to the palace. I saw a glittering brand new Rodolfini sports car, a car that only the richest of the rich in Swordland could afford. It's yours. No, I can't. This is too much, Mr. Cronty. Yeah, I can't accept our luxury car while the people of Swordland go hungry. Marcel shrugged. Suit yourself. Little boy, do you think I can't do better? Me, Walter Tusk? Whatever you want, bribery won't work. This is absolutely no bribe, Mr. President. It's a simple gift, that's all. Really, a simple gift. I bet this has nothing to do with the recent privatizations. Anyway, gentlemen, please take your seats. They sat down. Lucian proposed a set of documents from his briefcase. He put on his reading glasses. So, Mr. Tusk and Mr. Cronty, President Rain is about to sell private shares in Swordland's two largest national corporations, and now you're here showering him with gifts. You're both clearly more skilled at business than you are at subterfuge. So tell us, why do you deserve to claim these shares before they go on the general market? Walter cleared his throat. President, listen. We, you and I, have been getting along like gangbusters recently. I want to continue this profitable relationship between us. These shares are very important to me. If I had them, I could do much for Swordland. So much more for you. You haven't even seen what I and my connections are capable of. Do you want to get reelected? No problem. I will make sure of it. This is my offer to you. I will do whatever it takes to make you president for another term. Doesn't that sound great? If I win, I'll win with my own strength. Well, of course. Don't make light of me, President. I'm saying this precisely because I believe you are capable of doing it. That's why I want to help you. Before you spew those big words, make sure you can actually do it, Walter. Mr. President, first off, Mr. Tusk here is lying about the extent of his influence. True, he might have command over some people in the Assembly, but what he is sitting on top of right now was built by my father, Conrad Caranti. I want to be straightforward with you. If you give me shares, I will topple this old man, which means I will have the same influence he does over the Assembly. I can sway them as you like. But that is not all, Mr. President. Don't forget that I have something that gives me an edge over this man and his archaic ways. A powerful tool. The media, right? Control over the media. I can give you power over both the Assembly and the Swordish public. Basically, a guaranteed win. He could never ever hope to beat this offer. You little snake. You are 20 years early to be the head of the Lothburg group. I made the group what it is. Perhaps, but Marcel has a point. What is the decision, Mr. President? Yeah, what's it going to be? Marcel leaned forward with anticipation. I'm sick of these shenanigans. You'll have to squabble over the shares when they enter the market just like everyone else. What? Haven't you heard a word of what I said? Yeah, can't you see how good of a deal I'm offering here? I believe the President has already told you his decision, Mr. Tusk and Mr. Krante. We are terribly busy today, so I'd like to wish you a good day as well. I hope you know where the door is. If you don't, you can ask a security guard to show you out. This is not the end, Mr. President. You will hear from us again. The two men packed their belongings and left the meeting room. I keep giving them what they want, but it's not enough for these dick-headed clowns. They have to turn it into some sort of... Read the report. Rumsberg informs of whistleblower escape. Rumsberg has informed us about an escaped whistleblower headed to Swordland. They have prematurely requested the extradition of any whistleblowers from Rumsberg if they are to be found. Chelston Hailstone said the whistleblower is reported to possess highly sensitive information about covert weapons program. Queen Beatrice Livingston administration has demanded the immediate return of Hailstone, considering his defection as a breach of trust between the two nations. You know what, Rumsberg? I'll give you the person back if we could just get back to normal relations between us. Stop meddling in our affairs, and you can have the guy. Police launched successful raids. Earlier this week, police launched raids on shops and warehouses in Arbery City and Astord City. Their operations are reported to confiscate more than 2,000 illegal firearms and drugs. The captain of the police force in charge of these raids has released a statement saying that the shops are from the two notorious crime families, the Skinner and Corelli family. Excellent privatization of the Swordfish State Corporation's Needham Mining Group. Today, the government has announced changes to the ownership of the two largest state corporations in Swordland under President Rain's new privatization plan. A sizable portion of the Swordfish State Corporation Needham Mining Group, including their subsidiaries and operations, will now belong to the private sector. This move is estimated to reduce the effects of the recession. However, there is still uncertainty and speculation among experts of the state. The upcoming months will show the reality behind President Rain's decision. Rain determined to end recession. President Rain has shown that he has what it takes to stop the recession, as he announced his most ambitious plan to date, partial privatization of Swordfish State Corporation and Needham Mining Group. Solving the recession may not be an easy task, but this is a definite step to the end. In short term, a sizable portion of the assets of these companies will be privatized and procured by the highest bidder. In the long term, this will trigger revitalization of our economy by introducing a healthier competition in the Swordfish marketplace. This healthy competition will be the key in stopping the recession due to the improved efficiency as a result of it. Privatization is the solution to the recession, and President Rain has proved that this time he will fix the errors of his predecessors. CSP criticizes Rumsberg and Arcadia. Negative presidential approval rating. Really? Recent approval rating polling conducted by Chief Strategist Galland has shown that we have landed below the 25% approval rating. Our administration's performance has been widely questioned by the diverse poll taken by 1,000 attendees from all regions of Swordland. Well, that's worrying. Yes. The vote on the constitutional changes. A vote I don't really want to win. I wonder whether my attempt at changing the Constitution would end any different than Alfonso's. I looked out the window as the noise of the city diminished and saw that we were already inside the palace complex. The complex housed the buildings of all government branches in the center of Holsword. It was one of the biggest developments in Swordland. The Maroon Palace stood on a small hilltop surrounded by trees. We passed by the palace and entered the forest that separated it from the Grand National Assembly. We drove on the small road that wound through the forest. It was a warm day, so I rolled down the window. I could hear birds singing from the trees. Are you okay back there, sir? Hey, Sir Jay, I'm okay. How are you doing? I'm as good as I can be, sir. Sir Jay made a left turn out of the forest and entered the vast garden area of the assembly. Did you know that Mr. Tarquin Saul came to Holsword this morning? I heard some politicians talking about it today. Apparently this is the first time he's come to the city in the last 5 years. I thought he left the mainland and lived on Duru Island, never to return to politics. But they were saying he might be here to exercise his Member of Honor rights for the first time. Wait, what? Who was talking about this? I overheard several men talking about it around the garden of the assembly, sir. I'm not sure who they were. It could just be a rumor, of course. Do you think he's here because of today's vote? Yes, Sir James, most likely. Well, I'm sure he will support you, sir. We'll learn soon enough. Sir J drove inside the gates of the parkway and parked the car. We have arrived, sir. Thank you, Sir J. Good luck with the vote, sir. My family and I are all behind you. I'm sure Swordland is as well. I walked up the white stone stairs of the Grand National Assembly. The entrance looked like a temple gate from the classical era. The door opened to reveal vast corridors of wood and white stone. I joined the crowd of people who were walking slowly towards the parliamentary hall. Suddenly, I noticed Lucien emerge from the crowd of packed politicians in front of me. He looked relieved when he saw me. Ah, sir, there you are. Have you seen Vice President Vectorn? He's nowhere to be found. I just arrived here, Lucien. I hope Mr. Vectorn arrives soon, too. At any rate, how about yourself? Are you ready to finally face the assembly, sir? Lucien, I just heard something worrying from Sergei. We'll address that later, sir. Come, we must go inside. We followed the crowd into the parliamentary hall. After we were inside, Lucy and I separated to take our assigned seats. I went up to the mezzanine and overlooked the hall and sat down. I waited as the MPs took their place inside the hall one by one. After a while, I saw Gloria walk to her elevated seat at the center of the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. We will shortly begin with today's agenda of the USP's proposed change to the Constitution of Swordland. After a short while, everybody was in their seats. According to the current Constitution, constitutional amendments require a 2/3 majority in order to reach Assembly approval. If the vote succeeds, the proposal will be sent to the Supreme Court. The proposal in question includes these points. She started reading the proposal to the Assembly. First section of the changes, Article 57, is modified with the following. She continued reading the proposal, highlighting each section. Section 2, paragraph 36, she went on. May not exercise his right to, and on. The justices of the Supreme Court, most of the MPs seemed like they were already falling asleep. A simple majority is considered. The seat was really hurting my back. Section 4, paragraph 44A. I felt like an eternity has passed. Finally, she finished reading the changes. I hereby invite all of you to vote. She struck her gavel down. The loud bang made some MPs jump up in shock as they woke from their deep sleep. As I previously stated, it will require a 2/3 majority in order to pass. You may now cast your votes. I felt the need to stand up and stretch. I looked out at the hall from the platform I was seated on. Some assembly members immediately walked to the ballot box to cast their vote. Most of them, however, began to congregate in groups around the hall discussing the changes. I'll sit back down and keep watching. I saw some people cast their votes, but many were still walking around the hall or talking to each other. Then I noticed Kizaru Kibner approaching. He stopped below the mezzanine and looked up at me. Alright, I'll go down and talk to him. Mr. President, how are you feeling about the vote? Not so good. That's the right feeling. This whole proposal is a mistake. I've lost my respect for you, Mr. Rain. So many problems in Swordland that must be addressed, and yet you insist on stalling us with your democratic reforms. I know you will fail, you will lose the game, and so will your entire administration. I hope to be there when it happens. Mr. Kiebner, the people demanded this. So, I had to attempt it. Whether it goes through or not, I tried. Keep hoping, Mr. Gibner. He abruptly turned away from me and walked towards his seat. Then I saw Lucien waving at me. He was among a group of people in the corner of the hall. I walked up to him. On my way, I bumped into Mansoon Leek. Mr. President, I'm sorry I didn't see you there. I wish you good luck with the vote. He gave me a cold stare. Excuse me. He straightened his tie and walked away. Finally reached Lucien, by now deep in conversation with another member of our party. He excused himself and turned towards me. Sir, did you vote yet? We have to be quick. No, let's vote. I signed my vote and prepared the envelope. Together, Lucy and I walked to the center of the hall to cast our votes. He kept rushing me through the process. Gloria bowed her head slightly in respect, and she saw us vote. Lucien pulled on my arm and whispered in my ear, Mr. President, we may have a problem. Tarquin Sol is here. Yeah, I'm aware of that. I know. You have to accelerate the voting process. We need everybody to vote as soon as possible. We don't know what he's capable of right now, but if assembly members see him, he might influence them against the proposal. Should I talk to him? I would avoid against that right now. The assembly must focus on the vote. Any confrontation between the two of you would draw their attention away. Let's just go back to our seat. Any noise we make will distract everyone further. Sir, what do we do? He pointed at the back of the assembly near one of the exits. I followed his finger to see Tarquin Sol sitting there. He looked much older than he had 5 years ago, but I could tell he had the same fire in his eyes. Some MPs had already gathered around him and were chatting in awe. The assembly gradually went quiet as people started to notice Sol's presence in the hall. I'll go talk to him. We should refrain from giving him the spotlight he expects. Maybe you can address him after the vote. As I was talking to Lucien, I spotted Kizaru Kibner walking to the back of the hall towards Tarquin Sol. He bowed in front of Sol and gave him a military salute. Seeing this, more people started to approach him. Suddenly, Gloria came up behind us. Gentlemen, why don't you go back to your seats? Let's follow the procedure. Oh, by the way, we have 251 members today. As you can see, the member of honor is here. He has already cast his vote. Has he now? So, Miss Tori, how many votes are missing? Only a few. Albin Calvin and 3 other men approached us with envelopes in their hand, and these must be them. Good day to you, gentlemen, Madam Speaker. Good day, Mr. Calvin. I'm surprised to see you here considering the way you ignored your own party. Don't worry, Mr. President. Don't worry, Mr. President. We are here. Relax. He smiled. He gestured at the men behind him. Let's get this over with, gentlemen. They cast their votes and walked away. Now, why don't you two get back to your seat as well? Very well, we shall. We both went back to our seats. When I returned back to the mezzanine, I saw Peter sitting in the chair next to mine. Yeah, I haven't seen Peter in a while. Hey, where were you? I was right here. Where were you? I was talking to Lucian. He looked at Gloria, and she and her assistants counted the votes. The speaker's seat was only a few meters away from our platform. I really hope this proposal goes through. Sol is here. What? He's at the back of the hall. Fuck. He tried to get Gloria's attention by waving at her. How many votes left? Gloria looked at Peter. She looked annoyed. 20 votes left to count. It doesn't look good for you. Peter turned to me. Did you hear that? We're screwed. It's okay. There's hope. Come on. Peter looked uneasy. Peter pointed at where Franz Richter was sitting. Look at Franz over there. I'm sure he was behind this mess. You should have had trust in. You shouldn't have trusted him. We already knew he wasn't going to support us. I expected this. Well, a single bang from Gloria's gavel reverted across the hall. Everyone fell silent. The voting has concluded. I leaned forward to hear the results. The proposal has only 70 ayes and did not even gather a simple majority. Thereby, the Grand National Assembly has decisively rejected the changes to the Constitution. The Assembly was roaring with all kinds of different reactions. I felt destroyed. I lowered my head and closed my eyes for a second. God, I'm sorry. It's okay. We'll find another plan. The MPs kept shouting in the hall. Amongst them, I heard Franz Richter's voice. The President and the USP got what they deserved. This proposal was doomed from the start. He's just like his predecessors, enjoying the privilege of the presidency while ignoring the responsibility that comes with it. It is time to realize that real change will only come from real reformists. The People's Freedom and Justice Party will keep leading this movement. The reformist MP started applauding him. Suddenly I noticed Tarquin Sol slowly rising from his seat at the back. He seemed to be struggling and used his cane for help. He stood and gazed around the hall as all the members of the Grand National Assembly went silent. Keep watching him. He walked out the exit as 2 of his guards held the door for him. Thank God he didn't do anything. Soul or no soul, we are definitely fucked. Neither the party nor the public is going to be pleased. Screw Saul and the party. We were always on our own. You're right. So you think we can still survive this? If the USB abandons us, we'll form a new party. He looked at me with surprise. I'll follow you anywhere, Anton. We both looked down at the floor for a long while. After regathering our thoughts, Peter and I walked out of the assembly hall. We waited for Sergei by the entrance. Why was there a dot in situations if there's nothing here? The Assembly voted against constitutional change. The Grand National Assembly of Sorblin on Friday rejected the amendment of the Constitution that was proposed by the United Sorblin Party. I officially announced the rejection of the constitutional amendment, said Speaker Gloria Torrey after the proposal was rejected in a public session. According to Torrey, only 70 lawmakers voted in favor of the amendment, failing to reach the 166 threshold. Only one member of the Assembly abstained from voting in the session, attended by 251 members of the 250-seat parliament, including President Rain and Member of Honor Tarquin Sol. Countess, unsurprised, thanks to heavy opposition and a special appearance from the old man Tarquin Sol himself, President Rain couldn't manage to get his constitutional reforms passed the Assembly. We've been advocating for change to Sol's dusty constitution for ages, although it's doubtful that the changes Rain was advocating were the same as those we had in mind. Still, the failure is discouraging. With Rain's reforms in the wastebasket and his reputation similarly trashed, nobody else is likely to try changing the Constitution for years to come. Meeting on the result of the Assembly vote. Lucy and Peter and I met in my office and decided to move out onto the balcony to get some fresh air in the increasing summer heat. They both looked uncomfortable in their suits. Peter was trying not to make eye contact and kept letting out depressing sighs. He wiped the sweat off his forehead with a handkerchief. What do we do now? All our plans for nothing. Yes, the USP leadership is beginning to target us as well, not to mention Tarquin Sol himself. Yeah, what the hell was that all about? Sol appeared out of nowhere. What's done is done. Let's not linger in the past. You're right, sir. We must plan ahead now. We'll be organizing a cabinet meeting to discuss our present and future state of affairs. I will also try and test the waters with our MPs. We can't let the party slip. We can't let the party slip. Should be out of our grasp. Want a list of every party member who voted against the proposal? No, I don't. Good, I want each minister to give me a report. Yes, sir. Lucian looked at his watch. I think it's time to conclude our little meeting, sir. There was a tap on my shoulder. Livia Suno had joined us on the balcony. Pardon the interruption, gentlemen. Mr. President, David Whiskey is calling about the upcoming foreign policy meeting. Perfect timing. Tell him I'll be right there. I will, sir. She turned to leave the balcony, then back to us. My condolences on the vote results, Mr. Rain. Peter. She looked Peter in the eye as she said this and ignored Lucian. Altogether, Peter's eyes followed her as she walked out. Getting pretty hot out there. Okay, let's call it finished. You may both go. Alright, gentlemen, see you later. They both left. Best invitation to the movie premiere? USP meeting criticized the president. In yesterday's internal USP meeting, a large group of party members voiced their disappointment in the failed constitutional vote in the assembly. Lilius Groff criticized President Rain for pursuing change without in-depth research and proper communication between the party members, blaming the president and the vice president for the failure. Well, thanks, Lilius. Should I do the question mark first, or invitation to movie premiere? Let's do the question mark first. Rumsburg whistleblower arrives. A whistleblower from Rumsburg's Security Bureau has escaped to Swordland by crossing the border and turned himself to the authorities in Estord. Agent Charleston Hailstone has promised to reveal extremely sensitive information about the development of a weapons program. We can give refuge to him and risk antagonizing Rumsburg or send him back. Well, so if we grant him asylum, we get to learn this information about Rumsburg having a weapons program that they want to use against us. Granting him asylum only gives us information about what Rumsburg is planning to do to us. It only reinforces the fact that Rumsburg is trying to do something against us, and it's only going to enhance the fact that Rumsburg is further going to want to do something against us because now we granted him asylum. In no way does this de-escalate the situation, it only escalates it. Or if I send him back, yes, Rumsburg probably has this information that would be wonderful to know, but there is some hope that it will be seen as de-escalation of the problems between us. Even if it's the smallest of steps, maybe it can help to normalizing relations. So I'm gonna send the agent back. I don't think there's any upside in granting him asylum. Rumsburg sees potential for warming relations. Following the return of the whistleblower, Charleston Hailstone, to Rumburg, Queen Beatrice Livingston expressed gratitude to Swordland. The Queen has indicated that this act of good faith could mark the beginning of a warming relations between the two nations. She stressed the importance of mutual respect and cooperation in achieving regional stability and progress. Woohoo! One small victory for Rain. Okay. Swordland rejects whistleblower. The forecast for Swordland is rain with no chance of hailstone. Haha, very funny. Okay. Charleston Hailstone, a rogue national security agent from Rumsburg who crossed the border to seek refuge here, has been rejected. After escaping to Swordland, Hailstone promised to reveal sensitive government information in exchange for asylum. Rain's decision to give him the boot will certainly appease Rumsburg, at least for a little while. Alright, and then we have this movie premiere. Is this the movie where we're gonna get shot? Like Lincoln? I've been invited to an exclusive preview of Alfred Kusterbrick's new film, The Morning Shall Come. Although I wasn't in much of a movie-going mood, it would have been unpresidential not to attend. Really? With its massive budget and Kusterbrick's directorial cachet, this drama was set to be a milestone for Swordlin's burgeoning film scene. Personally, though, I was just looking forward to spending some time with my family. Wait, I brought my family to this movie? Oh no. It was very hot, and it was a very hot and sunny day as Sergei drove us to the old Capitol. The film was to be screened in the historic cinema Angli de Elroy, the very first cinema in Swordland. Sergei had maxed out the air conditioning to keep the Cadilla comfortable. I kept silent through most of the ride on the H1. I couldn't get my mind off the result of the assembly vote. Frank fidgeted with his tie as he stared out the window. What's wrong, Frank? Since when do you care what's happening in my life? Since always? You know, I support you whether you pass or fail. That might not be what the problem is. I've been busy lately, but I'll always have time for... Is that true, though? I mean, I'm president. If I always have time for him, then he has a way to get a hold of me. But does he? Well, it's the thing to say, I suppose. I've been busy lately, but I'll always have time for you. Busy with failure? Well, we can't always succeed with everything. Frank, don't talk to your father that way. He tried his best. You're hurting me, Frank. Frank turned his head away to look outside the window. I turned to Deanna. Excited for the movie, sweetie? Deanna nodded happily. What about you, Papa? I know you're sad, but failures helps us grow, right? Exactly. Now, where did you learn that? Deanna giggled. From you. You've been awfully quiet, Monica. I just want to focus on having a nice time at the movies. Monica folded her arms. We drove in silence. Sergei rolled down the soundproof glass between us. Sir, we're about to enter Erlerai. We'll be at the cinema in a few minutes. Thank you, Sergei. I took a brief look outside as Sergei rolled the soundproof glass up again. I could see the many towers of Erlerai rising over what was left of the old city walls. In the distance, there were several planes flying towards the city. As they got closer to us, I saw that they were military planes that looked like the sharp-edged Arcasian designs. They were probably headed for our new joint military base. Sergei knocked on the glass and gestured forward. We were at the main square of Erlerai, and the historic cinema, Angli, the Cinema of Angels, was right in front of us. Is this the place? Yeah. It was an old Baroque-style corner building with walls that looked like marble from a distance. There were exquisite ornaments on each side of every window. Sergei pulled the car up to the entrance of the building, which was lit by vivid neon stripes in many colors. On the wall next to the entrance, there were painted the words, "Stop the oppression of bloods." Come on, let's get out. Sergei opened the door and we exited onto the red carpet. We were just about to enter the building when journalists managed to block the path. Mr. President, how are you handling the defeat of your constitutional reforms in the Assembly? Not very well, to be honest. Thank you, Mr. President. And were you aware that Tarquin Sol would be present at the proceedings? No, I had to find out from my driver. Before she could ask anything else, guards ushered us inside the theater. In contrast with the cinema's Baroque-style exterior, the inside was modern and sleek, with bare walls painted in black and red and white. So, I answered honestly. I'm not taking it very well. The country as a whole is probably not taking it very well. If the country sees me as being in their shoes, it garners support. Not to mention, not knowing about Tarquin's soul showing up shows that there's possibly a old card working against me, thwarting my attempts at change, which again can help the populace as a whole rally behind me. So I think these were choices, but we'll see how they end up playing out in the going forward. In contrast with the cinema's Baroque style exterior, the inside was modern and sleek, with bare walls painted in black and red and white. The film's cast and crew were already in the foyer with glasses of champagne in their hand. We approached the crowd and were welcomed by the producer and the event organizers. A man walked up to us with quick steps. Madam, Mr. President, it's so good to see you here. He gently bowed at Monica and shook our hands. It's an honor to meet you. I'm Alfred Kerbuck. The honor is mine, Mr. Kerbuck. I'm a big fan of your work. Who? Nice to meet you, Mr. Kerbuck. My producers told me you had expressed admiration for my work. Frank snorted. I glanced at him, and he innocently took a sip of his cola. It's very humbling to know that you've been watching and enjoying my movies. If you don't mind my asking, which one was your favorite? This one may be slightly different than my previous works. All of them were my favorite. I love The Swordfish Dream. I love The Man Who Saved the World. I love The Man Who Saved the World. He stared at me for a while, as if he was trying to understand if I was joking or not. That's by Mikhail Vargas, Mr. President. It beat my film, The Swordfish Dream, for top prize at the Ben 5 Festival last year. Frank looked me in the eye and struggled not to laugh. Why don't we take our seats? It's about to start. We entered the screening room, and lights dimmed, and the film began. It was a period drama set in 1870 about a swordfish soldier who pursues a doomed romance with a widowed bloodish farmer during the conquest of Bergia. I wondered briefly whether Kerbuck was commenting on my own treatment of the bloodish people, but then he had finished filming long before I became president. As the credits rolled, I made an early exit to use the men's room. I was washing my hands when I heard an unmistakable voice behind me. So, what did you think? Tarquin Sol leaned on his cane. He had the same frail appearance I had noticed at the assembly meeting, yet up close I could still sense the raw magnetism that had kept him in power for 20 years. It's a period drama set in 1870 about a Swedish soldier who pursued a doomed romance with a widow to bloodish farmer during the conquest of Bergia. I wondered briefly whether I found the plot questionable, but it certainly looked spectacular. What about yourself? Sentimental problem for the enjoyment of housewives only. And for a period piece, the script contained far too many anachronisms. Totes? Indubitably? This is just breaking in continuity of this whole. Nobody says totes in whatever time period this is. I guess I'll have to go with indubitably because it's something that would have been said in the time period. What the hell were you doing? I don't want to confront him. There's no need to confront him. Enough small talk. Small talk is fine. I don't have to antagonize or attack the guy. I'm surprised to see you're still around, sir. What were you doing at the assembly? My country was about to make a rash decision. I couldn't simply sit by. He's not pleased. Well, yeah, he's pleased with the outcome, I'm sure. You've succeeded for now, but yeah, let's not make it us versus him. It's not your. I don't like these options. They're too antagonistic. I still have immense respect for your colonel. I wish it was reciprocated. You know, let's. Will this get us some sort of olive branch, I wonder? Let's go with it. It will be when you prove yourself worthy of it. You won't get away with your meddling. Why did you block my True president knows when he must step down. Well, I know why he blocked my... Why do I have to ask a question I already know the answer for? And it's not meddling. It's him expressing his political beliefs and pushing his political will with his connections. It's not meddling. That's democracy, frankly. A true president knows when he must step down. That cuts both ways. He could use that against me right now. I'm not very popular. Why did you block my reforms? I mean, I guess I'll ask a question I already know the answer to. I will not let an upstart like you tarnish my party and my constitution. Let's not turn this into a fight. I'm doing it for the good of the country. That's true. Well, no, I'm doing it because the country demanded me to do it. I'm not necessarily doing it because it's for the good of the country. I'm doing it because that was the mandate of the population of the country. That's what they asked for. But it's as close as I'm going to get, I suppose. Ha. Some of the spittle landed on my cheek. You'll find out soon enough how your country repays you for your goodness. He slipped past me and out the door. You know, that could have been a much more interesting encounter. You know, we've only experienced the burdens of being president. Everything doesn't go the way we want. We have seen firsthand how being the leader is only perceived negatively from all angles. No matter what you do, you can't make everyone happy. I'm sure Sol went through that. We could have, I don't know, had a talk about how it sucks being president. You know, who better would have understood our shared shoes of what we're going through? I don't like how that all transpired. Sol's security staff and mine were now clustered outside the washroom, forming a buffer against the large crowd that had gathered. That's Tarquin Sol, I heard someone scream. His guards closed around him and mine around me. By the time the chaos subsided, I was back in the car with my family, and Sol was long gone. The language bill protest in Bergia. Yeah, I figured that. After the passage of the language bill, a wave of bloodish protesters have risen and called for its revocation. The governor of Bergia reported that the situation has been brought under control, and the regional police force have been tasked with increasing patrolling duties around majority bloodish towns in Bergia. 2 organizations declare support for BFF. The largest bloodish nationalist organization is Suzerain, Children of Islam, and a local Golcondas cult, Golconda Bloodrat, have publicly declared its full support for the militant organization, the Bloodish Freedom Front. Read the report. Gassam branch growth boosts local economy. The expansion of a new Gassam branch in Narbel has given a significant lift to the local economy. This has generated fresh job opportunities and established a stable source of energy supply in the region. This positive development is anticipated to augment Narbel's growth potential and elevate the standards of living for its residents. Hey, some good news for a change. Gassam experiences boom. Expands workforce. Gassam on Lakovin is experiencing a period of significant growth, leading to major expansion of its workforce. This boom in business has not only boosted the company's fortunes, but has also created numerous job opportunities, bolstering the local economy. Excellent. More good news. Gassam branch opening boosts local economy. The opening of a new Gassam branch in Arbory has provided a substantial boost to the local economy. The branch has brought new employment opportunities and promised a stable energy supply, enhancing the city's growth prospects and improving the quality of life for residents. Alright, some diplomatic stuff. CSP sends peace armada to assist XEC. In a spirit demonstration of international solidarity, the CSP has dispatched a peace armada to assist the Xainan economic cooperation in combating piracy. The move has been warmly received by the XEC member nations, particularly Quinel, Zelina, Narashima, Fenkau, and further strengthens the cooperative ties between CSP and the XEC. Peace Armada, led by the flagship vessel Slovaria, comprised of a diverse fleet of destroyers, frigates, and support vessels. Their mission is not only to deter piracy, but also to provide humanitarian aid. Okay, that's interesting. Isn't Which quinol? Isn't that the nation that just is having problems with Arcasia? Agnolia warns against Vogslandian threat to the seas. Yeah, good luck with that. It's not our problem anymore. Arcasian Treaty Organization, read the report. Covers energy resources in Polaris. The ATO's International Expedition Command has established a groundbreaking presence in Polaris, uncovering a wealth of untapped energy resources. These resources, showing promise of sustainability and high yield, have sparked global interest and paved the way for further exploration in the polar region. A scientific achievement, the discovery is said to be a potential game changer in the energy sector. During the expedition, the team also encountered indigenous communities that have remained untouched by modern civilizations. As they were brought into contact with the outside world for the first time, the ATO now faces the delicate task of respecting their cultural integrity while enabling their integration into the global community. It's a fine balance to strike, and I'm sure that no matter what happens, it's not going to go well. Nurist Republic of Dirtia. We haven't heard anything about these guys before. Dirtia extends blessing on Dissension Day. Supreme Wiseman Georgia Asval has issued a special address on the sacred day of Dissension, sending blessings to the global Nurist community, including those in Swordland. He encouraged all to reflect on the teachings of Nuriti, and specifically Saint Ruick, and to uphold its principles in their daily lives. In a veiled reference to recent tensions, he appealed for reaching Golconda and mutual servitude to God among all nations, irrespective of their beliefs. Dinner with family, briefing on diplomatic strategy. Here's some reports. Bloodish students dropped school in protest. Thousands of Bloodish students dropped out of their schools in protest after teachers were forbidden to use Bloodish language in teachings. A Bloodish teacher who did not abide by the new law was reportedly arrested by the regional police forces of Bergia for teaching mathematics in Bloodish. Yeah, saw this coming. Galconda's threat against Dasners. Governor Krall has issued a warning to the residents of Bergia, urging them to remain vigilant against the threat of Galcondist extremists and potential violence targeting the Dasners community. The governor expressed concerns about rising tensions between the two Nurist groups, specifically highlighting the threat that Galcondism poses for their region. Okay, Swordland faces mounting threat from BFF terrorists. Rain and Sol meet at screening. New law on education and Sarge language. Rain had no prior knowledge of Sol's assembly appearance. The appearance of former President Tarquin Sol. The recent Grand National Assembly vote on President Anton Rain's constitution reform has been subject of much discussion. Now ahead of an exclusive preview of Alfred Kubrick's new film, Rain admitted that he had not been informed that Sol would be present at the proceedings. I had to find out from my driver, he stated in front of the historic cinema in Erlery. Investment surge boosts GASM. GASM experiencing a significant boom, buoyed by an influx of investment. This turn of events indicates a promising future for the company, which could have far-reaching implications for the Swordish economy and the energy sector. With fresh capital in hand, all eyes will be on GASM's next move and how it plans to capitalize on this financial boost. One film, two very special guests, an exclusive screening. The Morning Shall Come made a splash, but not for the content of the period drama itself. Instead, the film was overshadowed by two political figures in attendance, President Anton Rain, who made the trip from Hallsword with his family, and former President Tarquin Sol, barely seen on the mainland since 1949. It's rumored the two of them spoke in the washroom following the film. Washroom Summit. What are Rain and Sol hiding? At a screening of Alfred Hirschflick's overblown sob story, The Morning Shall Come, President Anton Rain and former President Tarquin Sol were seen exiting the men's room together while an illicit assignation is not out of the question. It is far more likely the two inveterate politicians were making backroom deals about which the Swedish public, as usual, will be kept in the dark. Yep, that's definitely what was happening. Rain signs racist bill. As disappointed as Anton Rain's presidency has been, we never thought he would stoop this low. President just approved the NFP proposed law that makes Swedish the only allowed language in all of the country's educational institutions, with the Ministry of Education in charge of granting specific exceptions. How is that racist? Okay, which of these things should I jump into first? Let's do this ceremony in Deer. Morning haze surrounded the city of Deer as the sun dawned on the day of Dissension, the holiest day of Nurity. It celebrated the first message received from God by Saint Dast and his 30 disciples. As per tradition, the celebration was held inside the arch sanctuary of Dasterney, closed to the public eye. This year, however, for the first time ever, it was going to be televised. That was Lucian's idea, as he saw it, granting the people a rare glimpse of the grand ceremony and showing them how serious their president took this holy event would ease attention that lingered in the region. And so we arrived at the largest cathedral in Swordland. A huge crowd gathered around our convoy as our car pulled up to the entrance. This will work out well, trust me, sir. Of course, that's only if the prayer is done completely correctly. Please don't forget the order. First, you will need to grasp the holy scepter with your left hand. Grasp. I'm writing this down. Scepter with left hand. Then touch the altar with your right. Touch altar with right hand. Kneel before the archpriest. Kneel before priest. And wait for him to put the sword on your shoulder. Wait for sword. Then touch the sword with the hand you touch the altar. Touch sword with right hand, altar hand. And hand the scepter over to the archpriest. and scepter to priest. And receive the sword before passing it on to a disciple. Receive sword before passing to disciple. Pretty straightforward, isn't it? Yeah, if you say so. I didn't understand a word you just said. Yeah, sure. Very good. You'll have to go first. I will come inside later, and we will meet up after your part is done. Good luck, sir. I exited the car and was greeted by a chorus of cheers and cameras flashing. I waved at the people as I made my way to the grand gates. The arch sanctuary was a sight to see. With its towering visage, it cast a shadow over a large portion of the city. I had to crane my neck to see the narrow spires at the top. Just standing next to it made me feel awe and dread in equal measure. As I reached the gates, I spotted my welcoming committee. The archpriest and his disciples were waiting for my arrival. At my approach, they all bowed their head in respect. The archpriest gave me an infectious smile as he straightened back up. Tall and handsome in his mid-50s, he was one of the youngest and most popular archpriests in the history. Some of his more avid followers even likened him to Saint Dast. Mr. President, praise God. It is a blessing to see you on our most holy day again. Welcome, welcome. Bow your head before the archpriest, which triggered a few murmurs of approval from the crowd. The crowd was still cheering loudly. The archpriest turned and raised both of his hands, and everyone immediately fell silent. O great people of Swordland, once again we are gathered here to honor the Day of Descension. I am indescribably happy to be sharing this moment with you, as well as every blood and sword, old and young, turning into their television to watch this holy commemoration. Along with the leader of our great nation, I say, let the holy day begin. Stay far from evil, O sons and daughters, for evil hides itself under many disguises, disguises such as blasphemy, apostasy, and even alcohol. Be good, my children, praise God, praise Swordland. He smiled I can't say that. He smiled beautifully as the crowd burst into rapturous applause. After it subsided, he turned to me. Shall we move inside your confession? My confession? Yes, just like last year, every man must confess before the holy ceremony starts. He led me through the main hall, which had a stratospheric ceiling and nourished icons lining the wall. We walked up a creaking spiral staircase to the top floor, and finally arrived in front of a confession chamber. Right this way. He gestured towards a chair in the dark room. The room smelled of old mahogany and scented candles. The archpriest proceeded to light each and every one of the candles, one for each virtue and vice. I will be right with you. He left the room. A minute later, I heard the sound of a sliding window right next to me. He spoke with a very soft voice. Anton Rain, speak and confess now before the one God, and may he repent your sins on the most holy day of Descension. I confess that I'm not sure what I'm doing for Swordland is enough. You do carry a heavy burden on your shoulders. What you have confessed is not a sin, but you may share your burden with me if you like. trying to reform the country, but I don't know if the country is ready for it yet. Reformation is one of the tenets of Nurity, yet it must come slowly but surely. Anything else you would like to confess? Have I been a bad husband? I don't think I have. I've avoided shady business dealings. I'm quite sure I've done that. And I totally backed Monica in all of her attempts to go political. That's all for today. Before God, I thank you for sharing. You are now forgiven before God, Anton Rain. May you never sin again. The sliding window closed and the archpriest entered the confession chamber. For the confession to end, you must extinguish the candles representing each one of your virtues and vices. With this, the once burning sins connected to you are now smoke, and then nothing. Extinguish the candles. One by one I extinguish the candles. Well done, Mr. President. Let's move on to my quarters before the ceremony. He led me through the 1,000-year-old corridors to his office. The smell of dust and old tombs was in the air, along with the scent of burning incense being prepared for the ceremony. Well then, please have a seat. The wooden chair next to him looked like it might turn to dust. At a single touch, I sat down gingerly. It was surprisingly sturdy. Are you ready for the ceremony? I am a bit nervous. Happens to the best of us. It will be televised after all. He leaned back in his chair comfortably. I wanted to talk to you about something. I realize it's been months since the Ben 5 festival, but this is my first chance to bring it up with you. It's about the actions of the First Lady. As you know, the festival is a holy event. Letting a woman make the opening speech did not sit well with us. We share the same concerns as Mr. Oh, Jesus Christ, here we go. A woman's place is beside her family, not giving public speeches and revealing dresses, certainly not insulting the important traditions behind such an event. Disgust was apparent on his face. Of course, we cannot ask you to do anything about it. She is your wife. But I just wanted to voice her disapproval of the situation. A woman presiding over such an important religious event. What have we become? I let her do this speech because people like you still exist in Swordland. His face soured and he did not reply. He looked me up and down for a moment. A couple of knocks were heard on the door and a young boy came in. He bowed before the archpriest, then me, before letting us know that the ceremony was about to begin. We made our way downstairs, where the ceremony was already in progress, the choir sang angelically as the archpriest took his position beside the altar. When they finished their hymn, an expected silence fell over the room. It was time for my part. I started my walk, bowed, and approached the altar. Grab the scepter with your left hand, then touch the altar with your right. Kneel before the archpriest. The archpriest laid the sword on my shoulder. Touch the sword with right hand. Hand the scepter to the priest. The archpriest handed me the sword. Pass the sword to a disciple. I got up and proceeded to my designated spot next to Lucian. He leaned over and whispered in my ear. Compared to last year, that went surprisingly well, sir. My eyes met the archpriest, and he very slightly nodded. The ceremony went on for another hour and a half. Finally, the noon bells chimed, marking the end of the cathedral's service. We left the cathedral to greet the waiting crowd. As I stepped outside, I heard everyone cheering and chanting my name. Lucian's gambit seemed to have been a success. We waved proudly for a minute or two. See, sir, I told you it would work. We entered our cars and drove back to our suites in Dare. The President attends the Day of Dissension. As part of Grand Ceremony, the Day of Dissension has begun with festivities in Dare. President Rain was in attendance along with His Holiness the Archbishop, who together performed the sacred rituals. The momentous occasion was celebrated by everyone, regardless of their rank and status. Swordland has once again felt unity amidst chaos, to come together, forgot their differences, and celebrated the Word of God. Wait, what's this? Supreme Wiseman Georgia Asmal has expressed his deep appreciation for President Anton Rain's successful conduct on the Day of Dissension rituals. He congratulated the President on his performance and set blessings on behalf of the nourished Republic of Derdia. Asmal's congratulatory message highlighted the potential for religious diplomacy in fostering stronger relations between our countries. However, he expressed hope that this religious goodwill can translate into improved political and social conditions for all Nerus, but specifically Golcondas and Swordland. Alright, let's have dinner. I arrived home from work, hung my jacket up, and put my briefcase in the hall. I paused, awaiting my usual greeting from my wife and daughter. Deanna was out at one of her after-school art classes, I remembered, but where was Monica? From the living room, I heard a muffled sob. I entered to find Monica sitting on the sofa, a letter in her hands and a look of despair on her face. Sit down next to Monica. Monica briefly rested her head on my shoulder, then handed me the letter. It's from the Department of Education. Frank's university exam results are in. He failed, didn't he? Just read the letter. I looked at the page below Frank's name and address. His score was written 435 points out of a total 1,000. At the bottom of the letter, the word failed was stamped in red. All those years of effort, all those private lessons, all down the drain. Maybe it'll be good for him to learn from his mistakes. This isn't just about Frank, you know. Him failing will reflect badly on you, on us. I just don't understand Frank's a smart boy. Why would he sabotage himself like this? I heard a key turning in the front door. Frank stomped in and was about to go straight upstairs when he noticed us both in the living room. Mom, Dad, what's going on? Have a seat, Frank. He took a seat across from us. I handed him the letter. He started reading it. Oh shit. Son, we're not angry at you. I need a moment. He went to the kitchen sink and washed his face. A moment later, he came back. I never thought this would happen. I'm so sorry. It's not the end of the world. Pretty close though, isn't it? Frank looked close to tears. Monica put her hands on his shoulder. It's going to be okay, but you really should have studied harder, Frank. I know. So what am I supposed to do now? Well, there's always military school, but you're the president's son. You still have options. Yes? Monica surprised me with her enthusiasm. If Alfonso could get his dimwit son into Kings Hill University, I'm sure Holsworth State would have room for a bright boy like Frank. I'm not going to take life lessons from Ewald Alfonso. Holsworth State would be amazing. A bunch of my friends are going there. I could still come home to do my laundry. But I failed the exam. This sucks. Are you sure about all this? Isn't it technically illegal? Wait, you could also study abroad. You know how I feel about communists, but United People's University in Cortana is free, and it also has an excellent medical program. Actually, never mind. This is the future of our boy Anton. What should we do? I won't influence your life, Frank. The military is the right choice. I understand principles are important, but Anton, which is more important, your principles or your son's future? My son's future, of course. Then I believe you will make the right choice. Oh, Christ. I wish Frank would have given me more input, and I wish I had more options. How about sending him to Arcadia? That would have been good. Fine, let me think about this. Thank you, Anton. There's Holsworth State, or you could study abroad. Can't believe this. You know how I feel about the communists, but United People's University in Cortana is free, and it also has an excellent medical program. Communism, I can dig that. Oh, Jesus Christ. Not exactly how I was expecting to spend my student years, but anything's better than the military. Is it, really? This is the future of our boy Anton. What should we do? It's been decided you're going to United Cortana, Frank? That's the only option I have? Thanks, Dad. Holsworth State still would have been my first choice. Not only yours, but it's your call to make after the way I messed up. What a day. Who's hungry for dinner? Monica disappeared to the kitchen, Frank to his room. I went to my office and began making some phone calls. Maybe something good will come from him studying at USP. How best to know about communism than learning about it firsthand. Maybe you'll learn that it's not everything it's cracked up to be. Rural education improved significantly. Rybel is reporting higher test scores and attendance rates since its education facilities were equipped with new textbooks and state-of-the-art teaching material. The overall was a result of the decision to channel more funding into rural schools. Some good news for once. Yay! The ATO expresses concern over drug trafficking in central Moldova. Okay. Once again, the bloodish protests in the country have claimed its toll. This time the toll was an injured child on his way home from school. 13-year-old DK unknowingly entered the protest grounds. The police tried to suppress the protests. The chaos ensued. Trapped between the police and the protests, he was injured in the following stampede. His treatment still continues in Holsworth General Hospital. When will this end? Wantani Ashraf, hero to some, enemy to others. He is for sure one of the most controversial figures to have ever lived in our country. As his anniversary is approaching, there is only one question that is shared in everyone's mind. What will the administration do? Every year people gather in Suzerain to hold a vigil in a solemn anniversary of his death. They light candles in his memory and hold cultural festivals. What is different this year, however, are the claims that the bloodish movement will be holding their largest rally yet in Suzerain during the anniversary. Perhaps it is time for the administration to let bygones be bygones and take a step back to display the unity of Swordland to the people who very much need it. Who is this guy? A bloodish carpenter who was killed by the Swordlish soldiers during his protest against the construction of the Soul Dam. His death and the subsequent chaos that escalated between the protests and the Swordlish soldiers came to be known as the Ism Incident. He became a symbol of bloodish resistance movement in Swordland. Not much is known about Ashraf other than his work as a carpenter in the village of Ism near Suzerain. According to many sources, he was respected as the village elder, and many villagers sought his advice. In 1933, when Swordlish authorities came to the village to force the villagers out of their homes, he refused to leave his home. He took part in the protest against Soul Dam, which threatened to destroy Ism by leaving it underwater. He was shot and killed by a soldier on the 10th day of the protest. Following his death, his name became a symbol of bloodish rights. His death is mourned by the bloodish Democrats and the bloodish separatists alike. The Bloodish Freedom Front was initially called the followers of Ashraf. Alright. While the state building of the Soul Dam is something that shouldn't have been blocked, this guy should have received compensation for his land that he was displaced from. Not killed, not shot. I don't know if there was any compensation offered to him. Education privatization. Are our children doomed? As we expected, Anton's reign decision to privatize the Swordland educational system has had a serious deleterious effect. Young people in rural and low-income areas are being increasingly priced out of education they deserve, while a relatively small handful of wealthy families reap the benefits. As proof, witness the higher-than-ever gap between test scores in Narbel and Holsword. We had high hopes for Education Minister Ciara Walda when Rain first appointed her, but she seems to only be enabling his delusion that corporations will solve all of Swordland's problems. Clearly, they both need to go. Okay, briefing on the diplomatic strategy. White Room, Maroon Palace. Time for yet another meeting. At least this time, it was with people who liked me. Is it? Is it really? The attendees rose up from their seats. Mr. President. Iosif nodded. He and Lucian sat down, while David remained standing. Now that you're here, let's talk about our diplomatic strategy. David cleared his throat. Mr. President, if I may, I would like to provide you with a short overview of where we're at right now. Nod and gesture for David to begin. Although we did not make a trade deal with Agnolia, we succeeded in making one with Wayland, which means we have increased our presence in the region. These deals were important pieces of leverage and significant first steps in the global arena. We must now look towards the future. Go on. David sat down, pulled out a few papers, and started going through them as he kept talking. Wayland and Agnolia were practice runs. We must begin improving our relationship with greater nations. We need to elevate our international standing, especially with the threat of Rumsburg looming. Iosif cleared his throat. Mr. President, you know me. I don't trust the helping hands other countries offer us for good reason. But I also know that those helping hands are necessary, and right now we need all the help we can get. I've said this over and over, but I will repeat it until you get it through your skull. Rumsburg will come sooner or later. And with the current state of our military, if a Rumsburg invasion happens, Swordsland will cease to exist. We need allies. It's supposed to be heed, not head, General Lancian's advice, Mr. President. I trust your assessment, Iosif. Thank you, Mr. President. A military perspective is important, but these deals are about more than just gaining allies. We also need to consider the benefits to our economy such deals will provide, especially when we are still struggling to end the recession. David took a seat and brought out 2 stacks of documents. At the start of our term, I had a comprehensive trade deal plan laid out. Following the visit to Wayland and Agnolia, we were to pursue potential trade deals with 2 greater nations. Bogsland is one of them. If we can manage to get them to the table, there is much more potential here than in Wayland or Agnolia. Because they are one of the most important countries in the CSP, a deal with Bogsland is a ticket to bring Swordsland closer to the United Cantana Sphere. Yeah, no, and probably the next one is going to be Lesbia. Dealing with countries in the CSP is dangerous. Simple trade deal wouldn't cause issues unless we decide to go further. Moving on to Lesbia. Our southern neighbor is one of the wealthiest countries in eastern Marcopa. A trade deal with them would be very beneficial, not just for our economy, but also for our regional and international presence, not to mention that they are in the Arcasian sphere. Because we would be following through with our promise to lean westward, this would also strengthen our voters' base. Indeed, this deal could also be the first steps in allying ourselves with Lesbia or even entering the ATO. A trade deal with Lesbia could open doors for us. True, a country as influential as Lesbia could help elevate our economy. That's it for the overview. As to the actual contents of the trade deal, Lucian. Lucian pulled out his notebook and quickly flipped through the pages until he landed on the right one. Looking at my stats here, we now have a small tungsten surplus, which makes an excellent resource for trade, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. I need to know your decision before we can proceed. You know, had we supported the farmers in Sarna, we could have used that extra crop to trade with Lesbia. But I didn't go that route, did I? Or did I? What did I do? I don't remember now. Before you say anything, remember what I said. We need allies, not just trade deals. If Rumburg is attacked, we will fall. Begin negotiations with both Fogsland and Lesbia. Excellent news. I will begin at once. That was all I had for today. Thanks for coming. Thank you, gentlemen. I all saluted as we left the White Room. Actually, I am doing the agricultural zone. And this episode is starting to get a little long in the tooth, so this seems like a good point to wrap it up. Anyway, I am James Johnson, aka Softwareblade. This is my content. Hopefully you're enjoying it. If so, please smash that like button, consider subscribing, and until the next time, all, peace.